Otto I. You likely know him as the mighty emperor, the architect of the Holy Roman Empire, a towering figure who famously crushed the Magyar invaders at the Battle of Lechfeld, forever changing the course of European history. He's often presented as the quintessential strong ruler, a unifier, a pious defender of Christendom. But that widely accepted portrait, while true in its broad strokes, barely scratches the surface. The real Otto, the one hidden beneath layers of hagiography and state-sponsored myth-making, was a far more complex, often brutal, and deeply calculating individual, whose ascent to power was paved with betrayals, ruthless political maneuvering, and a profound willingness to bend even sacred institutions to his imperial will. He didn't just restore an empire, he forged it in a crucible of ambition and unyielding force, leaving behind secrets that fundamentally reshape our understanding of his legacy. Let's peel back those layers, starting with his very path to the throne. When his father, Henry the Fowler, died in 936, Otto wasn't simply handed the crown. He inherited a kingdom rife with powerful, semi-autonomous duchies whose rulers saw themselves as equals, not subordinates. Otto's ascension was met almost immediately with fierce resistance, and it wasn't just from rival families, but from within his own. His own half-brother, Thankmar, felt unjustly treated regarding inheritances and openly rebelled, forming alliances with other disgruntled nobles. This wasn't some distant skirmish, it was a brutal family feud, ending with Thankmar cornered and tragically killed in a church, a clear demonstration of the unforgiving nature of early medieval power struggles and Otto's resolve. Even more significant was the repeated insubordination of his younger brother, Henry. Henry, perhaps believing himself more capable or simply coveting the throne, repeatedly conspired against Otto, aligning with some of the most powerful and rebellious dukes of the time, like Eberhard of Franconia and Giselbert of Lotharingia. These weren't minor rebellions, they were serious challenges that threatened to tear the nascent German kingdom apart. Otto's response was swift, decisive, and often merciless. He wasn't afraid to confront these powerful figures on the battlefield, or to execute swift justice afterward. The Battle of Andernach in 939, where Eberhard and Giselbert were defeated and killed, marked a turning point. It showed that Otto would tolerate no challenge to his supreme authority, no matter the familial ties or the traditional power of the dukes. He wasn't just defending his crown, he was systematically dismantling the old structures of independent ducal power, replacing hereditary rulers with his own loyal appointees, often members of his family, but always chosen for their loyalty, not their lineage. This was a profound and often bloody redefinition of royal power in Germany, a secret history of consolidation through sheer force. Then there's the story of his marriages, which, like so much else in his life, were as much about strategic political advantage as they were about personal union. His first wife, Edith, an English princess and sister to King Athelstan, brought crucial diplomatic ties with England, a burgeoning power. Her early death in 946 left a void, but it wasn't long before Otto found his next, even more significant match, Adelheid of Burgundy. Adelheid's story, on its own, is a saga of intrigue. She was the widowed queen of Italy, held captive by Berengar II, who had usurped her throne and sought to force her into a marriage with his son. Otto's rescue of Adelheid in 951, often romanticized as a chivalrous act, was, in reality, a brilliant piece of political opportunism. By marrying her, Otto immediately gained a legitimate claim to the Italian throne and entangled himself irrevocably in Italian politics. This wasn't merely about love. It was about extending his power southward, securing his influence over the Lombard kingdom, and ultimately laying the groundwork for his imperial ambitions. Adelheid herself was no meek queen. She was a formidable intellect and a powerful personality who would later exert immense influence, even clashing with her own son, Otto II, showing a strength of will that both complemented and sometimes challenged Otto I's own. Their relationship was a partnership of power, not just a domestic arrangement. Perhaps one of the most significant secrets of Otto's reign lies in his relationship with the Church. History often portrays him as a pious defender of Christendom, and certainly he granted the Church immense privileges and wealth. But this wasn't purely out of spiritual devotion. Otto saw the Church, particularly its powerful bishops and abbots, as an indispensable tool for imperial governance. Unlike the secular dukes, who often harbored their own dynastic ambitions, bishops and abbots, being celibate, couldn't pass on their offices to heirs, making them ideal, reliable administrators for the crown. Otto systematically appointed loyal ecclesiastics to key positions, investing them with vast lands and administrative authority, effectively transforming them into imperial officials. They raised troops for him, collected taxes, and administered justice, acting as a counterweight to the powerful secular nobility. This instrumentalization of the Church culminated in his boldest and most audacious move, his intervention in Rome and the deposition of Pope John XII. John XII was a young, notoriously dissolute pontiff, accused by contemporary sources of extreme moral failings, including sacrilege, simony, and a lifestyle that scandalized even his own age. The accusations leveled against him painted a picture of debauchery and utter neglect of his spiritual duties, rather than a focus on religious leadership. Otto, summoned by various factions within Rome and the Pope himself initially, marched into Italy, secured the Papal States, and was crowned emperor in 962, officially establishing what we now call the Holy Roman Empire. But the deal with John XII quickly soured. When the Pope turned against Otto and conspired with his enemies, Otto acted with unprecedented resolve. In 963, he convened a synod in Rome that effectively put the Pope on trial. The accusations against John XII were numerous and severe, ranging from gross immoral behavior to active treason against the emperor. The synod declared John XII deposed and elected a new pope, Leo VIII, a layman at the time, at Otto's insistence. This was a revolutionary act, a clear assertion of imperial authority over the papacy, essentially claiming the right to appoint and depose the head of the Western Church. While Otto's actions were justified by John XII's alleged moral turpitude and political treachery, it set a dangerous precedent, demonstrating a secular ruler's willingness to control the spiritual realm. This was not merely the restoration of a Roman Empire, it was the creation of an empire where the emperor claimed immense spiritual sway, a move that would fuel centuries of conflict between emperors and popes. It's a secret not in the sense of being hidden, but in its true implications for the balance of power, often softened in traditional narratives to emphasize Otto's piety. His various campaigns in Italy were not always glorious victories either. They were long, arduous, and costly affairs, involving prolonged sieges, economic disruption, and the imposition of foreign rule on a populace often resistant to German domination. Otto spent a significant portion of his later reign south of the Alps, constantly battling rebellious factions, Lombard princes, and even Byzantines who saw his encroachment into southern Italy as a direct threat. He aimed to integrate Italy into his new empire, but it was a struggle that consumed vast resources and demonstrated the difficulty of truly uniting disparate cultures under one crown. The Iron Crown of Lombardy, which he claimed, was a symbol of his power, but the reality of holding on to that power in Italy was far less majestic than the symbolism suggested. The stories of Italian resistance, of the complexities of Roman politics, and the sheer brutality required to maintain his presence there are often glossed over, presenting a cleaner narrative of imperial expansion. Finally, consider the legacy of the Holy Roman Empire itself, the grand project attributed to Otto. While he revived the title and established a powerful central authority, the secret here is perhaps that his empire was fundamentally Germanic, not truly Roman in the classical sense. It was a continuation of Frankish traditions and Saxon power, legitimizing German dominance through a historical connection to ancient Rome. The translatio imperii, the transfer of imperial authority, served as a powerful ideological tool, but it also masked the very real political and cultural differences that always existed between the German core and the Italian periphery. His negotiations for his son Otto II to marry the Byzantine princess Theophanu were a recognition of the older Eastern Roman Empire's prestige, but also a bold statement of his own empire's parity. This wasn't just a marriage alliance, it was a complex diplomatic dance where Otto asserted his new imperial status on the world stage, demanding recognition from the ancient seat of empire. The lavishness of Theophanu's arrival in Rome and her subsequent influence underscored the fusion of cultures Otto sought to achieve, but also highlighted the foreignness of his rule to many Italians. In truth, Otto I was a figure of immense will, intelligence, and a capacity for strategic ruthlessness that few rulers have ever matched. He didn't just respond to events, he shaped them, often through force and calculated manipulation. The secrets of his reign aren't necessarily hidden facts, but rather the starker, more human truths behind the polished historical accounts. He was a man who unified a disparate kingdom, but only by crushing dissent with an iron fist. He restored and elevated the church, but only by making it an extension of his own imperial administration. He founded an empire that would endure for centuries, but one built on the complex, sometimes contradictory, foundations of German power and an often resisted claim to Roman heritage. Understanding these deeper layers allows us to see not just the powerful emperor, but the shrewd politician, the unyielding military leader, and the man willing to push the boundaries of convention and morality to achieve his grand vision. His story, when viewed through this less idealized lens, reveals a leader whose legacy is far more nuanced and, in many ways, far more compelling than the sanitized version often presented in history books. He reminds us that even the greatest historical figures are driven by a complex mix of ambition, piety, pragmatism, and a profound understanding of how to wield power, sometimes with methods that are far from conventional or morally simple.